Welcome this evening to this special report from Catholic Family News. Today, December 18th, 2021, along with July 16th, another day that will live in infamy. As you're probably listening to this, you're aware, today the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments released a response to dubia they claim they received. Now, we're still waiting for Pope Francis to respond to the dubia of the four cardinals on Traditional and Amoris Laetitia, but they don't need to reply to that one. That's been years waiting. But note, they had to quickly respond to various dubia about the implementation of Traditionis Custodes. Archbishop Arthur Roche, who we've reported on before, you see him there with the dictator Pope himself, the minion and his dictator, issued a letter explaining what he was doing and then answered a series of questions that he said he received from a variety of bishops. We've published a written statement already. The primary focus tonight is to answer your questions, which you can enter in the chat box, the comment box. And I'll have to beg your forgiveness. As you probably could tell if you watched our news roundup, I'm recovering from a cold. It is, however, not the CCP virus. I had that in February. This actually feels like a natural illness, unlike that. So that's the other reason I know it's not that. But it's still a cold, and it's a bit annoying. So please bear with me. So before we open up your questions, though, really just give two broad comments. One, what do I think's going on? Why was this done? I think there's two primary reasons that this came out now. Number one, it's to shut down diocesan bishops that reacted to Traditionis Custodes by leaving the status quo. So many bishops, and many of them American bishops, when it came out, said, you know what, we don't really know what's going on here. We need to wait. Everybody that's saying the traditional mass, or most people or most places, can just stay doing what they're doing. They allowed everything to stay. This puts an end to that. Because it says you may not allow, and particularly to parochial masses in parish churches, those may not be allowed solely on the authority of the diocesan bishop. The diocesan bishop must go to Rome for approval. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence they launched this on a Saturday when they're closed. So no diocesan bishop can get permission from Rome for tomorrow. They did this to see what they will do. So they've invalidated all the permissions that bishops have given for the past few months to any diocesan priests or even ecclesia dei priests who say mass in a parish church to continue. They've said, you do not have the authority to grant that permission. Many of those bishops tried to use a provision of canon law that says the bishop can grant a dispensation. That's true, unless the Holy See reserves that dispensation to itself, which is what Roche has said. The congregation reserves the right to approve all dispensations. So I think that was point one, to say to those bishops, you've got it wrong. You cannot allow exceptions to this. Number two, it was to fire the shot at the Ecclesia Dei communities in preparation for the February visitations, to tell them, here's what we're coming to tell you have to do. Your ordinations are over. The minor orders are over. You can't teach the old mass in your seminaries. That's what it says. So that's what it says. My second point, that's what I think the reasons behind it are. Second point, what have reactions been? Stunned, obviously upset. Saw a very positive reaction from, I think a good reaction from the Institut Bon Pasteur, the Institute of the Good Shepherd, that said, translating from the French roughly, I thought the Feast of the Holy Innocents comes after Christmas, not before. I guess it's been moved. And for the good of the church, we will resist. And I'm glad that's their first reaction. We will not accept this. The problem they have is they have no bishop. So even if they resist, who will ordain their priests? Because it says no bishops can ordain their priests in the old rite. And it's going to be hard to get permission for any newly ordained priests after July to say the old mass. So that reaction, the Coalition for Canceled Priests issued a great press release saying they stand ready to support and help any priest who is canceled because they will not comply and they will just keep saying the traditional Mass. Again, the pressure is now on the bishops. If priests don't comply and keep saying Mass, or heaven forbid, put it in their bulletin that there's a traditional Mass, that's how detailed this is. You're not allowed to print in a parish bulletin that there's a traditional Mass. Then the Vatican will come after the bishop, saying, why aren't you disciplining this priest, and threaten the bishop. So they are there, great organization. I got a chance to meet the head of that organization in Kansas City last week. We're going to be doing an interview with him, hopefully in the next couple of days. So that will be really important to see what they're doing. So some good reactions around the world in terms of resolve to resist this. All right, let's turn to your questions and see what we have. First question is from Ian St. Francis, and it says, $1 million question. If the Pope excommunicates the SSPX priests and faithful, does that mean it's binding or valid, even if it's erroneous? So again, this is an interesting theory I have speculated about, that perhaps this is, and again, I don't know, this is speculation, the Pope's intention. So why does he make nice to the SSPX? So you can have marriages, you can have confessions. Oh, but nobody else can. Now he's banned all sacraments from everybody except the SSPX. So why would he do that and then crack down on these people? One plausible theory is to get everybody that's attached to tradition to move over to the SSPX and then, quote, excommunicate them. Again, I don't know if that will happen or if it is the intention, but if you want to try to find a rationale, it makes sense. Now, what he does doesn't always make sense, so that might not, there may not be a rationale. But as to your more specific question, excommunication is a penal act, a punishment. Right? Under law, a punishment is only valid if, first of all, done according to legal form, and if it is consistent with law. So if the Pope just says, you ate broccoli this morning, I'm going to excommunicate you, he could say it, but it would have no effect because that's not a crime. That's not a criminal penalty. It is not excommunicable under the law. So again, the Pope is not God. He is the vicar of Christ. He has a limited authority. He is the supreme authority on earth, but that is limited by the divine and natural law. So any, quote, decree or claim of excommunication that is not grounded in law for a valid reason, that is not contrary to the divine and natural law, would, no matter what it says, would not have any effect here or in the next life. Now, it may have practical consequences. People will treat you as excommunicated, even if you're not, so you will suffer persecution, but it has no effect. So I hope that answers your question. Next question. What a nice Christmas present they gave us. Yeah, well, good to keep a sense of humor there, Liz B. Arthur Roach. Okay, that's not a question. Okay. Let's look for a question. Just in time for Christmas. Yeah, I think we all seem to agree about that. Next, here we have a question from Alexandra K. When is this to take effect? Immediately. So again, this is a little odd. Traditionis Custodes did the same thing. It said this takes effect immediately. Typically, when the Pope will change the law, there'd be a period to get ready. So, for example, when Benedict XVI enacted Summorum Pontificum, it was in July, but it didn't take effect until September 14th. Francis was so anxious to get this there that he said it takes effect immediately on signing. Now, this letter is basically saying it's effective now because this is what Traditionis Custodes says. So it's not a law in that sense. This is what the lawmaker intends. This is what Traditionis Custodes means. So it takes effect right now. And like I said, I don't think it's a coincidence they released it on a Saturday to cause qualms of conscience for many priests and maybe even bishops out there. So they are saying it is effective. These guidelines are effective right now. Yeah, Lisby, this is evil. That's really the only way to describe it. I think you're right. Satanic, that's another way to describe it. Absolutely. Beware the visitations. Yeah, although in many ways, I don't think the visitations really matter anymore because they've basically put an end to it. If they have forbidden bishops to ordain any seminarians, what's going to happen in these seminaries? Why would you stay in them if there's no hope of ordination in the right that you want to, or there's no path for you to actually have approval to do it, have the ability to offer the old Mass? Because they're basically saying anyone ordained after today should not be saying the Mass. Okay. Bishop Felle will. Well, maybe if they ask, if they're, obviously there will be ordinations in all the society seminaries this year because this will not affect them at all. If the Ecclesia Dei communities want to turn to the society, it was interesting in Kansas City last week. The Superior General, Dom David Pagliarani, made that very clear. He said this hadn't come out yet. It's very painful for the Ecclesia Dei communities, but the society wants to be here to help them, to do what we can. So we'll see what happens. Pray TLM Mass prayers at home. Make spiritual communion. Yes, if you can't get Colette Overman to traditional Mass, that's the guidance of the Church. If you are unable to get to one, that's what you can do at home. Where is... I think he's saying, where's St. Pius X Mass in St. Louis? I think is what Colette's question is. It's in downtown St. Louis. I don't remember the exact address. I've been there. It's actually an old Eastern Orthodox or Byzantine church that they bought and converted over. It's in the very downtown area. But if you go to fsspx.today, there is a little app, fsspx.today, and open it up. You pick the United States and then pick Missouri, and you can find St. Louis, and it'll give you the Mass times and the address as well. So you can take a look there. I think it's Our Lady of the Assumption, but I can't remember. It's been a while, thanks to COVID restrictions. We haven't driven through St. Louis in many years. I only read the readings. Again, if I think you're talking about if you can't get to a Mass, what the traditional guidance of priests and of the Church has been, if you are prevented from hearing Mass on Sunday through no fault of your own, this applies if you're sick or whatever, what you should do is spend some time doing something spiritual that would be the amount of time you would have spent at a Sunday low Mass. So 45 minutes to an hour, you should do something. That could be praying the rosary. It could be reading the readings. It could be reading spiritual reading. There's no fixed formula, but anything that you would spend the same amount of time that you would in Mass when you are prevented. Stephen Cox, hello, good to see you. Welcome, Stephen. What do you think the SSPX response will and should be to this? There have long been rumors they'd consecrate more bishops. So first part, what do I think the response will and should be? I think it should be what the Superior General said in Kansas City. Because again, he's repeated this many times. The prior Superior General has said it. They have not kept tradition for themselves. So they've not said, well, we're just going to keep this for us. They're keeping it for the whole Church. They are preserving the Catholic priesthood, the Catholic Mass for the whole Church. So it's not something they just want to keep and hold to themselves and exclude people. I think the reaction should be to have open arms to any priest, wherever he comes from, who is sincere and who will not give in to this totalitarian dictatorship, wants to continue saying the true Mass, and they should welcome him with open arms and help and support to the extent that they're physically able to do that. And again, this should take, this would take a great act of humility and charity. Because remember, some of these communities, not all of them, but some of the former Ecclesia Dei communities were founded in a painful break with the society. Those who left abandoned Archbishop Lefebvre, broke with him. And again, not trying to judge. It was a very difficult decision, led to the consecrations, but that obviously creates some bad feelings, right? To break, but to, I think from the society side, what they should say is, look, whatever the past is the past. It's water under the bridge. If you are sincere and you need our help, we're here for you. I think the bishops should offer to ordain seminarians for them. Again, if they can be satisfied of their formation and that, et cetera, as any bishop would. I think they should say, we're here for you. We will ordain for you. I think that's the best response, because, again, they're not keeping tradition for themselves, but for the whole church. And if the whole church is having the door slammed in their face, then they should open this door for them. The Superior General actually addressed the question. Someone asked, are you going to consecrate bishops? And I'll summarize what he said, that they would only do that if there was a clear sign that it was necessary. And he was very clear about this. He said, we have 3 bishops right now who are able to function. Even the oldest of the 3, Bishop Bernard-Tissier de Malaret, his health is doing better. Again, he's the oldest and had some health issues. Again, nothing grave, but he's definitely getting older. He said they're all 3 able to perform their functions. So as long as they are able, and there are 3 of them, it is not a necessity. Because, again, they know consecrating a bishop without a papal mandate is an extraordinary act only in the case of a necessity, not an inconvenience, not it'd be safer, it'd be nicer, but a necessity. And he made very clear they would only take that step when it was clearly necessary. And he also said they would proceed the same way that the Archbishop did. They would ask Rome for permission to try to obtain the proper permission. And again, I think that's the right way to go. But he made it very clear they're not going to just do it without just cause. Again, I think Lisby, at some point, if one becomes incapacitated or begins to die or does die. So our diocesan TLMs that are held in parishes now banned. So no mass. Now, yes, according to the document says that the traditional mass may not be celebrated in a parish church. And this is what's important, because that's what Traditionis Custodes says. The diocesan bishop may not, on his own authority, derogate from that and say, well, I'll give you an exception. He can only do it if there's absolutely zero other place to have a traditional mass in his diocese. Then he has to go and get advance permission of Rome. That's what the document says. That's very clear. And by the way, if you're going to allow it in the parish, it has to be at a time when nobody else is there, nothing else is going on, and he can't tell anybody about it. Now, as to your situation tomorrow, I don't know where you are. I can't say whether it will or not. It's up to that priest. Is he willing to just do it anyway? If he is, he's willing to act like Archbishop Lefebvre and say, this is an unjust law, I won't obey. This is not Catholic to obey this, and he'll just say his mass. I don't know what your priest will do. I'm hopeful that there'll be some priests in parishes who have been offering the traditional mass who will do it anyway tomorrow. But it's very clear they will be, quote, breaking the letter of this law, but they will in no way be breaking the law because this is of no force in effect. It is so egregious. Now, the next question will be, what will bishops do about it? Because many of the stories out of Rome are that Pope Francis has sent out many spies on bishops, and he's trying to suss out the bishops that don't follow his marching orders to have them removed. So the next step, if your priest does say mass tomorrow, is what will the bishop do? Will he then come down and say, hey, you broke the law, you can't do that, and threaten him? Or will he cover for him for a while? So take a look in the morning and see. But if they're going to obey blindly this diktat from Rome, then there shouldn't be tomorrow. Sursum Corda. Is there any insight, or does anybody have any access to, or is he, I don't know who he is, ignoring all this and or impossible to access as to what Benedict XVI thinks of all this? I think I understand the question. What does Benedict XVI think of this? He has remained silent. We don't know. There have been really no rumors or reports coming out of Benedict XVI saying anything about it. We can speculate what he thinks, obviously, because he can't like Francis doing this, undoing everything he did. But so far, there's really been no one reporting that he has said anything about it. But if he was going to speak, now would be the time to speak. CF Hulling, you're not doomed. You are not doomed. Don't go back. Again, see my conference. Is the new mass legitimate? You are not obligated to go to it. Stay firm. Go to the catacombs. Christus Vincit. What can we do in this situation? What can we as laymen do to improve the situation? Well, obviously as laymen, we can't just have our own mass, right? Priests, it's very clear what they can do. Just say the mass, just remain faithful to the Catholic priesthood. What can we do? One, sanctify ourselves and our families in whatever means are available to us where we are. Sometimes that may mean we have to make more of an effort. We can't just drive across town to where we normally go to church. We may have to drive further distances to get to the Mass. So find priests that are saying the Mass and get there. Number two, we need to be like the advice that I was asked about to give. What should this Society of St. Pius X do? We need to support priests who are going to go into persecution. It's very clear. This is a clear message: comply or get punished. It's saying it explicitly, what can and can't be done. And priests and bishops who are going to defy this will need support. The work of the Coalition for Canceled Priests is very important because priests need, that's what the laity can do. We can arrange temporal matters. Because when priests get canceled, they lose their sustenance, they lose their medical care, they lose everything. And unless they come from an independently wealthy family that can take care of them, that's a daunting prospect. So that's something we in the laity can do. Stand there to help them. Kingfish Stevens. Do you think this has anything to do with setting up whatever the synod on synodality is trying to accomplish? I don't think directly, to be honest. I think they're kind of independent. I mean, they're all related to his dream of destroying, although it was never possible, but destroying the human element of the church. But I don't think they're directly linked. I think this is to end the presence of the traditional Mass in parish churches. That is to, I think the Synod on Synodality is to destroy dogma. Is to make dogma subject to democratic votes, which he would manipulate and then do whatever he wants with. So I think they're related, but I don't think they're directly aligned or one for the other. And the irony of this is this whole synod on synodality. We have to listen to you. We have to with the bishops. All the bishops, oh, you're very in charge. We have to listen to you. You have to take votes. This is all done as a dictatorial fiat from a document issued from Rome. No consultation, no synodality. So it just ironically proves what a scam the whole synod stuff is. It's like Napoleon having a plebiscite on his whether he should be emperor or not, that essentially everybody had to vote for him or you couldn't vote at all, or a Russian election where you have one candidate who's a communist, as in the Soviet Union. He doesn't care what bishops think. He's just doing what he wants to do. So Mary McCoach. So what about all the synodality he's so big on? Absolutely right. This has nothing to do with being synodal. Have you heard from Cardinal Burke lately and his thoughts? KJ Hammer. Well, I don't hear from Cardinal Burke. He doesn't write to me. I'm not on his correspondence, but he has not issued any public statements about this. Now I know he is still recovering from his serious bout of the CCP virus. I know he's doing better. He's out of the hospital, but he must be aware of this. That I have not aware of him issuing any statement so far. Jimbo, any chance the SSPX makes an auxiliary for priests from the Ecclesiae Dei communities, or will they themselves go independent? I'm not sure what you mean make an auxiliary for priests. I mean, maybe what you mean let them affiliate with them. I'm certainly anything's possible. And the society does already do that. They do have priests who come to them and say, we want to join you and profess our engagement, make our engagement, our solemn engagement, and become members of the society subject to the Superior General. And they have priests that do that, that have come over from the Novus Ordo and do that. But they also have what are sort of friends of the society or affiliated priests who don't join the society, but have chapels or things set up. And what the society does is just support them. They confirm their people that need to be confirmed from their chapels. If the priest, needs to go away on a retreat or be away, they'll send one of their priests to replace him for the time he's away, for the Sunday he's away at least. So they do have other priests that are, again, friends of the society, I think is the term they use, or affiliated, but they don't belong to the society, but they support them in that way. And again, if some of the Ecclesia Dei communities break up and some priests are just out in the cold on their own, I mean, I think it's certainly possible the society could help them the way they help other priests in that way, if they don't want to outright join. Another one about Cardinal Burke. Okay, Christus Vinciat, if we cannot go to SSPX, can we go to other liturgies, even those outside the Catholic Church? Should we attend Mass with some Sedevacantist groups? So when you say outside the Catholic Church, the answer to that clearly is no. Right? You don't want to go to some Protestant. I don't think that's what you mean. But also, you should not go to a schismatic Eastern Orthodox church. That's different from an Eastern Rite Catholic Mass. But you certainly cannot go to a heretical or schismatic. The Sedevacantist is a more difficult question, because if they are validly ordained, it is a valid Catholic Mass, right? Sedevacantist Mass. They're priests offering a valid Mass with valid intention. The problem is, again, I think Christopher R., I think it was, who said this at John Rell's Catholic Conference in June. When you've met one Sedevacantist, you've met one Sedevacantist. There's not really a unity of what they believe or think, and you don't really know what you're going to get. So there are some who might, quote, be Sedevacantist, and that term means lots of different things to different people, who really, there's no real danger to your faith there. There's not a problem, potentially. I've had, some priests, some good priests, who say, okay, I know that particular priest, it's probably okay for you to attend Mass there. Others, have some strange ideas that could be dangerous to your faith, could lead you to despair, to give up on the church, and it may not be prudent. So I think it really does depend. If you can find a good, solid priest who can advise you, who can look into the particular situation, I think that's the best answer. Also, I noted that if validly ordained, you have to be careful. Some of these Sedevacantists do trace their ordination through bishops, through the Thuk line, that have some dubious questions about them, whether there were valid consecrations and ordinations. There's sort of lots of people running around claiming to have been consecrated by Bishop Thuk, Vietnamese Bush bishop, and also a couple other bishops who have got some clouds over them. I don't know. I'm not giving any opinions. I mean, on any particular priest, but there's definitely some of the Sedevacantist groups that have some cloud over their ordination lineage. And again, that would obviously make it an invalid Mass. You would not be, if you went to a Mass that turned out to be invalid, that you know about, right? So that wouldn't worry about that, but you scrupularize over that. But it definitely poses lots of problems, and I think you should my advice would be to be careful, and it depends on all the facts and circumstances. Bishop of Tulsa scheduled to confirm 34 in the traditional rite at 10:30 Sunday, and then offer a low Mass assisted by a newly ordained FSSP priest, Jeffrey Smith. Really interesting to see what happens. I'd appreciate, could you write into us and let us know, if you're in Tulsa, what happens? Because according to this document, he is not allowed to use that pontifical. And if he does, it will be an act directly disobeying the Congregation for Divine Worship, and by implication, Pope Francis. So if the Bishop of Tulsa does that tomorrow at 10:30, that would be really significant news. So, Mr. Smith, if you get any information on that tomorrow that's reliable, please let us know. Send an email in on the Catholic Family News website, a comment, because I'd be interested to know. That is really a moment for this bishop to find out what he will do. Melanie, CF Hewlett, have you got another rite within driving? Oh, you're commenting on someone else on what they can do. Would it be a sin simply to obey the new directive? Ve Victus. So would it be a sin to obey? It depends. It's a kind of a broad question. I think it is an unjust law because it exceeds the authority of the lawgiver. It is not for the common good of the church, and its end is evil, not good. So we are not, no one, priest or bishop, is obligated to obey an unjust law. As St. Thomas says, they are no law at all. They are really rather acts of violence. So you're not obligated to obey it. However, are you obligated to disobey it is a slightly different question. And there I think it would be if it is harmful to the faith or offensive to God. And so I think that, again, I'm just speaking objectively. I think it should not be obeyed. And in conscience, it should not be obeyed by any priest or bishop. Now, I'm not speaking, and don't quote me as saying, oh, I said that, bishops and priests who do anything in accordance with this are committing a sin. Subjectively, remember, to commit a sin, you have to do an act, but you also have to have an intention and have full knowledge and understand what you're doing. And again, that we cannot judge. That's what our Lord means by judge. We cannot judge people's inner intentions. But definitely, it is a law that need not be obeyed. Will future FSSP priests be ordained in the new rite of ordination? Dusty actual. Now, of course, according to this document, yes, that's what it says. The pontifical is the book that contains the old rite of ordination, may not be used by any bishop. So if you're not using that, you have to be using the new rite pontifical. Again, that's what the document says. So if any FSSP or other seminarians are ordained in the old rite, it will be either by a bishop who disobeys the Pope, just like Archbishop Lefebvre, because Archbishop Lefebvre was suspended, quote unquote, ad divinis in 1976 for ordaining his priests in the old rite. So if a bishop does that, he will repeat the act of Archbishop Lefebvre, and we will see what the persecution is of him. It's likely to be the same. So if they're ordained in the old rite, it will have to be a bishop, maybe someone like Cardinal Burke. I don't know. So who would just say, well, I'm doing it anyway because this is an unjust law. But he will have to be prepared, like Lefebvre, to suffer the consequences. Or, as others have suggested, perhaps they will turn to the society's bishops. Time will tell. But again, according to the document, that is what they say must happen. What would be a great way to invite people to the TLM? Well, it's a hard question. It really depends on the people. You sort of know them, what might appeal to them. One thing might be, because this is a lot of people, there's been several people coming, hearing all this in the news, well, if the Pope's trying to destroy this, there must be something about it. Let me go see. So maybe appeal to curiosity. Hey, do you want to see what all the fuss is about? Again, I don't know. I found with people, it really depends what can attract their attention. Sometimes it's music. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's Latin. Sometimes it's all different things. So be all things to all people. Stephen Cox, another question. Do you predict any U.S. bishops resisting this? Strickland, maybe Corleone come to mind. Not many others. I agree with you. I think Strickland, is the top of the list. He has been told us that he's offered the traditional mass just really recently in the past few years for the first time, and has transformed his priesthood. He was pretty strong about basically, I'm not going to do anything for Traditionis Custodes. If there's going to be any bishop who's going to resiste fortes in fide, resist strong in the faith, resist him to the face, I would put my money on Strickland. I think there's a good chance. He seems to be really, and this happens, and this is what Archbishop Vigano has told us, offering the old mass changes you, and you can't go back. He seems to have been changed, clearly. So, possibly. Again, I don't know. Corleone's a possibility, but we'll see. That's just the U.S. Bishop Schneider is another one I could see possibly. He is an active diocesan bishop, auxiliary. He could be, again, suspended. But I could see him saying, I will ordain FSSP priests or confirm your children. They're the top three names. I think I would put Strickland, Schneider first, Corleone. But I can't really think of any other U.S. bishops that are likely to outright deny it by confirming or ordaining, certainly. Maybe there was some who look the other way and say, I didn't know they were having it in a parish church. Nobody told me. Might be willing to do that, plead ignorance, and look the other way. But to outright disobey, they're the ones that come to mind. Dean Barker, should we treat priests who go along with this mandate the same as the juring priests during the French Revolution? So the French Revolution, The revolutionaries required all priests to swear an oath to the revolution and the civil constitution of France. And the Vatican, the Pope, advised priests to not go to masses of priests who swore this oath, who were juring priests, but only go to ones who refused the oath. So that's just background to Dean Barker's question. It's a slightly different, I think, situation. In there, I mean, I think if they're saying the Novus Ordo, my answer is consistent in all these shows. I don't go. Unless you're passively attending for a family reason, like a funeral of a family member. Don't go to the Novus Ordo. But if it's a priest who is offering the traditional mass, but going along with these restrictions, again, I don't know how they're even going to be able to do it for very long anyway. I think this is a matter of pretty short time frame before it all, they really try to stop all of it, but is trying. Again, I think it depends on the facts and circumstances. Is maybe the priest does need some support, and you're going there will help him to persevere. But if they really go along with this, you're not really going to go to a mass anyway, because if they're a diocesan priest on Sunday, they're very limited in their ability to offer it anyway. They have to go outside of their parish. They can't binate. I think the whole point is to get this out of the parishes. If it's an Ecclesia Dei community priest, they probably can carry on as long as they're not in a parish. Some of them use parish churches, but as long as they're not, they probably can continue on offering mass. So that's, quote, is that going along with this? I mean, not necessarily. They're just doing what they've always done. So I think it's a harder question to answer because there's not like an oath that they've signed their name to. And it really does depend on the facts and circumstances. Breaking trad, starting buying and framing altar cards. Start buying, well, get the catacombs ready. Obviously, good advice there. Maz Kanata, papacies accelerate toward the end. I suspect Francis and Roche feel like they're in a race against the clock. Again, that's all possible. But again, I think it's kind of a wishful thinking to think, oh, he's going to die soon. This is almost going to be over. As we don't know. We don't know how long he's going to live. And it's kind of wishful thinking. And number two, we don't know, what he's got in store for his successor. He's really packed the College of Cardinals. And, the devil may be better than devil you don't, right? So who knows what the next pope could be better, but could be worse. So I think it's not worth speculating. All this may be over soon. We just have to deal with the reality in front of us. Thanks for the well wishes, Colette. Bizarre. Never moved this quickly. It is, and that is another bizarre aspect. The rapidity that this just has to happen so quickly and be so dramatic is really very noteworthy. We go underground, yes. So let me just see if we can find any more questions here. I've been offline the last few days. What happened? It isn't run-of-the-mill Vatican nonsense. Go read Catholic Family News. A lot happened today, December 18th. Yes, good comment. A dubious dubia popped up like a mushroom. Okay, let's see if I can find any more questions before we wrap up. I will let you know. Oh, thank you. You were supposed to be there as an usher. Please do let us know if it happens. That would be worth noting. Yeah, again, when you say the society's for the chop too, that's where I agree with you, that maybe that's his plan, to congregate everyone in the society and try to punish them. On the other hand, there's not really much he can do to the society that hasn't already been done to them in the past. Why? As Archbishop Vigano has pointed out, the society owns all their own property, so he can't stop them from saying Mass. They own the church. And they have their own bishops, so they can keep ordaining priests. So, yeah, I mean, he can't do what he's doing to the diocesan Ecclesia Dei communities because they don't own the churches and they don't have bishops. So again, he might just, quote, excommunicate them, but they've been through that before and they've carried on and flourished notwithstanding it. So I'm not that worried about it. Say they aren't receptive to outsiders. Again, I don't like to generalize about sedevacantist places. I think that can be generally true, but I wouldn't label all of them that way. See what Orlando, Florida Diocese released about churches not in union with Rome. Okay, we'll take a look at that. Big counterfeit church modeled on Chinese patriotic. Actually, it is an interesting model, what they're basically trying to do. Apart the set up this parallel church like the Patriotic Association. You meant Catholics, right? I thought that's what you meant. Hope SSPXers are welcome. I second and third that. We need to welcome people now. Now's not the time to say, what took you so long to figure this out or get here? It's the time to say, I'm glad you're here. What can I do to help you? Absolutely agree with you, Stephen. Can outsiders just show up and start going to Pius X? Absolutely, Source of Corda. Again, I can't speak for every single person. There may be some grouchy old church lady that when you show up says, how are you? What are you doing here? Right? People are people. There's always going to be grumpy young people everywhere. So, don't say, oh, you told me. But I will tell you, the priests will be welcoming. We'll be happy to have you there. Father Pagliani, the Superior General, spoke in Kansas City about churches have doubled or more, increased 50, 75% all around the world because of COVID, because people came as it was shut down. I witnessed it myself. People who knew nothing. And the priests welcomed them in. And again, most people I know, most faithful did too. But again, there's always going to be some cranks. Don't let that turn you off. Don't do something just because some grumpy person didn't like the color sport coat you were wearing. Right? Go for the right reasons. Do they have the capacity to open additional chapels in all the cities that now have SSP? Capacity? No, right? Because you need priests. They only have 700 some priests. Now, obviously, if some priests come over to them or affiliate with them, they'll have more priests. But I think they have the desire, but the capacity, they need more priests. Their seminary is now full in the United States. The new one they built, bigger than the old one, and they have a waiting list. I forget the exact number. It was something like 30 pre-seminarians who were sent to spend a year in one of their priories waiting for a space in the seminary. So no, they certainly do not have enough priests to send them everywhere. Although most cities that have an FSSP Mass have an SSPX Mass already, because that was the design when they set up the fraternity. They sent them to places where there already was an SSPX chapel to lure people away. So there may already be one there. But no, and that's one of the, I think Father Pagliani's expressed his concern that they don't have enough priests to meet the influx of people that may be coming because of COVID and this. When will they finally get the bishop they were promised? Well, obviously never is the answer today. Thought that downloading playlists of the Divine Office would be beneficial besides supporting priests. That's a good idea. Sure, downloading. There are a lot of good websites that have the music, the chant of the traditional Mass that you can download. The Institute of Christ the King actually has the best website. It has an incredible website for the chants. Not necessarily, I don't think it's for the Divine Office, but for Mass. Of every Mass, every Sunday Mass at least, they have the propers and they have music where you can listen to it. They have a really well done website, the Institute of Christ the King. But there are other places to download them, to listen to. There's also Brev Meum is an app that's available, I know, in Apple and I think in Android, which has the entire Divine Office. And it's just you pick the day and it all comes up, every office. Brev Meum. I think it was set up by the Franciscans of the Immaculata, so I don't know who's running it now that they've been destroyed. But it's a great app. You can get on a phone or a tablet to read the Divine Office as well. So yes, another good idea. An ex-Calvinist, welcome, William Jones, ex-Calvinist. Showed up to SSPX after being turned away from 2 RCIA programs, which were closing after Holy Week. SSPX people have been nothing but warm, welcoming, and kind. That's good to hear. I know of several Catholics now who showed up, didn't know anything about Archbishop Lefebvre, the Latin Mass, weren't looking for that, but they were turned away by RCA programs who said, oh, you missed the deadline, we're too busy, why don't you stay Protestant? And they found the SSPX because they were the only places that would let them become Catholic. So you're not alone. I know several in Oklahoma City that happened to. So glad to hear that you had a good experience. Since the document references baptisms, if you were baptized in a Protestant group before becoming Catholic, you should investigate it. Yes, this is true. There are several Protestant sects that clearly have invalid baptisms. Again, it's pretty easy to baptize validly. You just need water, and you have to say, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, or Holy Spirit would even be valid, if you're not traditional. But some Protestant denominations don't even do that. And so you do need to investigate it and have a priest, not you, have a priest investigate it. RCIA doesn't really, in many cases, not all, doesn't really care about it at all and just accepts you were baptized. Remember, baptism is the gate to the sacraments. If you're not baptized, nothing else, no other sacrament can be received. So it's good to have a priest look through your baptism, confirm if there is any doubt. And sometimes if you just say the denomination that did it, he'll say, oh, well, we know the form they use is invalid, and you just are conditionally baptized again. So important thing to look into. How can they issue a clarification about something that wasn't in the original Morte Proprio? Unless I missed it, where was the part about bination prohibition and only one Mass? You're right, it's not explicitly in Katrina Smay in the Morte Proprio, but I think what they're saying is Francis is saying in the Morte Proprio it needs to be limited, and this is a clarification on a way that it should be limited. But you're right, they are definitely going beyond it. Like I said, I think they're angry that some bishops have not shut this down. And so they're looking for more ways to block and put restrictions. Isn't that like an authority passing a law about speeding, saying you can't go more than 55 miles per hour, then clarifying, saying you're not allowed to idle your vehicle? Absolutely right. Again, for all these reasons, this is just utterly invalid. I agree completely. But their understanding of law is law as power, not as authority, not as legitimate. So they're just doing it because they can, because they think they can. So they think most people will just go along to get along. So again, thank you for some great questions, great comments. I appreciate it. I apologize for my coughing, but in my cold, hopefully I'll get over it before Christmas. But look, let us not be downtrodden or be discouraged. God does not abandon his church. The gates of hell will not prevail. We may have to suffer, may have to make extraordinary efforts. We may have to help lots of priests and bishops, hopefully. But he will provide the means for our sanctification that we need. And so let's not be discouraged at all. And honestly, I'm very encouraged by this. I think it's very hopeful that this is happening because, you know, it really shows that they are really desperate, as someone has said. They really know time is up, that they just can't, they're losing, and it's a last desperate effort, which means something big, I think, is at hand. Something big is at hand. So let's see, a couple more questions just came in, it looks like. So Canon 87, Jeffrey Smith asked. Okay, Canon 87 is what some bishops have invoked to grant the derogations that they have about you can't, you know, I'm going to let you have a parish church, I'm going to let you keep doing it. The problem now is the Vatican has spoken. And Canon 87 says bishops can dispense from general law when there's a need, but not if the Holy See has reserved to itself the dispensation. So with respect to these things that they have specifically said you must get the Holy See's approval, there's just no, they can't dispense from it, from the parish churches, etc. The granting the ability, so called granting the ability of new priests ordained later to say the old Mass. And as to the pontifical, they've banned the book. And again, so the bishop can't dispense himself. Say, I'm going to dispense myself. So Canon, that's exactly why I think they did this, to shut down the Canon 87 arguments. Let's see. Does the FSP issue Christ the King? No. Again, maybe there's some exception somewhere in the world, but generally, no. They're just given use of churches that are either owned by the diocese or owned by some other organization. They are not owned. It's sometimes the houses they live in, where their rectory, you might call them, are owned by them, but not the churches. Again, there may be an exception here or there. They're just given use or care of the churches so they can be taken away by the bishop, and have been. May I suggest using the website Latin Mass Live 24/7 worldwide links? Yes, it's a good, very good. Please look at Melanie's post. It is a website that will give you updated information on where to find masses. The app. I think you mean the app. There's two I mentioned. Brev, B-R-E-V, Mayhem. If you search in the App Store, Brev Mayhem has the Divine Office. And I mentioned SSPX.today. That's not really an app. It's a website URL that will show you each of the society parishes by country. Would it be prudent to go to an SSPX resistance mass? Again, it's a tough question. Good question, Dean Barker. I think it does depend. Facts and circumstances. I don't think I can give a blanket answer because, like St. Vacantus, the quote resistance is you met one resistance person, you met one resistance person. They've kind of broken up and aren't even together anymore with themselves. Bishop Williams has gone his way. The Pfeiffer has gone their way. I mean, it's kind of all over the map. So I think if there's one who well and maybe they even regret what they did, that they're not going to forbid you to be confirmed by Bishop Fillet, or maybe, I don't know. I think it really depends if you have no other choice, on the situation. I think there's definitely a danger there. Obviously not like a danger like the new Mass, but I think it's hard to give a universal answer. Canons regular of the New Jerusalem offer the TLM and traditional Vespers in Latin with some English on screen. Okay, well, I think we got to the... Oh, wait, no. Another question popped up. Would you agree this situation is parallel to the mandates in secular society for the vax? Actually, great question. I'm glad I saw that before we ended. Ivan Molina. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I think there's a great parallel because notice with the vax mandates what they're doing. They're getting more and more desperate and issuing more and more mandates and more and more and more. And now this and now that. And now we're going to do this. Why? Because it's not working. It's not forcing everybody to vaccinate. Best statistics on the government's own statistics, 61% of America, if you believe their statistics. So after all their mandates, it's still not really working. And so they're just doing more. They're desperate. So I think in that sense, it's just like it. They're desperate. They know it's not working. And so they're just trying to be even more totalitarian and restrictive. So I think, again, a great comparison. Well, again, keep up hope, keep praying, pray, hope, and don't worry, as Padre Pio used to tell his spiritual children. God is in charge, and if the seriousness of this crisis has been made known to us as to be so serious and so dramatic, the restoration will have to be proportionally dramatic. And, maybe this will be the beginning of the end of the conciliar church. Maybe this will push more and more people to tradition, and the Novus Ordo, establishment, the deep church, will just collapse under the weight of its own totalitarianism, just like the Soviet Union did one day. Again, most people turned on their televisions to see the Soviet Union dissolve and were shocked. Didn't see it coming. The deep church could collapse just the same way that the Soviet Union did in 1991. I was alive and remember that. So let us just do what we can do our part, pray, hope, don't worry, and offer any assistance to priests and bishops. So thank you again for your great questions. Thank you. We will keep monitoring this story, and we'll post on Catholic Family News as things develop. And I love to report if we hear what happens in Tulsa tomorrow. So thank you. God bless you. And if we don't see each other, a Merry Christmas.